The man took out vodka and savored it carefully, but the next second, he was in excruciating pain, howling in agony. When he raised his head again, tears of blood were streaming from his eyes. Furious, he ran to curse the devilish wooden door nearby. His head felt like it was about to explode once more. Immediately after, the man was soon engulfed by flames. However, 25 minutes later, the man, roasted to medium doneness, didn't die. He shouted that he was willing to work for the devil. Thus, the Devil's Restaurant officially opened for business. Soon, the man welcomed his first customer. The customer came in looking very gloomy. He complained that he hated having someone nagging in his ear. The man immediately took out a roasted lamb tongue. As the boy swallowed the lamb tongue, the annoying person suddenly bled profusely from his mouth. It turned out his tongue had been sliced into pieces and was falling out. And when a mechanic in need of money for medical bills appeared, the man served him a bowl of chicken blood cake to replenish his strength. Then he took out a magical treasure chest and punctured the mechanic's hand to stuff it into the box. Unexpectedly, a sucking sound from a baby came from inside. After doing all this, the mechanic suspiciously opened the chest. Afterward, by feeding what was in the chest, the man became a billionaire. But there is no gain without effort in the world. What price did those who got their wishes actually pay? Today, let's take a look together at this newly released Vietnamese horror series. Without further ado, the story begins. It is said that human nature is inherently evil. Greed, anger, ignorance, arrogance, and doubt. These are all things the devil loves the most. As long as you come to the magical Devil's Restaurant, the deepest desires of your heart can come true. However, good things do not come easily. When wishes come true, the devil always takes something he is interested in. Jack opened an old wooden box. He took out a folding knife and laid open his scarred left hand. Jack hesitated for a long time. Finally, he made up his mind. The scabbed wound began to bleed red again. At this moment, the sound of a baby crying unexpectedly came from the box. Jack hurriedly reached his hand into the box. Soon, the baby's cries disappeared. In its place were the sounds of sucking and swallowing. After feeding what was in the box, Jack eagerly opened the box again. It was filled with thick stacks of cash. Jack immediately stuffed all the money into a bag. Suddenly, he heard his wife's urgent voice from outside. Jack hurriedly locked the box in the safe and put on gloves to cover his bleeding wound. Then, he asked his wife what had happened. His wife explained that she was going to the hospital for a checkup tomorrow. She hoped that this time the IVF would be successful. Jack simply comforted her. Then he took the money to the restaurant. Through the connection of the agent, Jack met the leading figure in the investment world, Hunter. To make his money grow, after careful consideration, Jack handed over all the money he took from the box to Hunter. However, after returning home that night, the agent called. He anxiously said that Hunter had been arrested. If he didn't hurry to get him out, the money he invested would be lost. This news shocked him. Jack hurriedly asked how to save Hunter. The agent said they needed money to redeem the person before noon tomorrow. Jack didn't want to lose the money he had exchanged blood for so easily, so he took out the money-producing treasure chest again and repeated the previous operation. But to his surprise, after feeding what was in the box this time, when he opened the box, it was completely empty. Back to a few years ago, Jack was just a mechanic living in a slum at that time. The agent had been urging him to sell the house he was living in. He claimed he could definitely sell it for a good price. But Jack thought the other party was joking. At this moment, someone suddenly called him. Jack hurried to the hospital. It turned out that his pregnant wife had gone out to buy groceries. On the way, she got into a car accident and lost the baby. Because of the injuries, she would find it very difficult to have children in the future. However, there was still a glimmer of hope through IVF. But the cost of IVF was too high. Jack couldn't even afford his wife's medical expenses, so he could only go to the restaurant and wait for the agent to sell the house. But after waiting for a long time, he received some difficult news. The buyer didn't have time now and could only discuss it next month. Jack looked worried. The restaurant owner, Kate, served him a drink and said he had a way to make him rich. Kate then took out a wooden box. Then he pricked Jack's finger. As the rich smell of blood filled the air, the things inside the box began to cry. Then Kate pressed Jack's hand into the box. Jack was astonished to find something sucking his blood. After feeding the contents inside, Kate asked him if he was sure that money was the only path to happiness. Jack said that if he didn't have money for medical bills, they would have to sell their home and end up on the streets. If they could never have children again, his wife might also leave him, so he was certain that he needed money. Later, Jack used the treasure chest's money-producing ability to move into a villa with his wife. They lived a prosperous life. He also spent money trying hard for IVF. However, this time Jack found himself in a dead end again. He wanted the treasure chest to produce money to get through the tough times, but after several attempts, he failed each time. At this moment, there was suddenly a knock at the door. Jack opened the door with a knife in hand. To his surprise, it was the agent. The agent demanded that Jack hand over what Kate had given him, then he rushed in, ready to open the safe. Jack warned him to calm down. He promised he would come up with the bail money for Hunter. However, the agent angrily said that Hunter was already dead. Now he knew how Jack was making money, so he wanted to snatch the box away. Jack denied it, saying he had nothing. These words pulled Jack into memories. It turned out that before making the deal with the boss, the other party served him a dark dish, chicken blood cake with crushed roasted peanuts. After eating this dish, the box would belong to Jack. However, Jack had asked a question back then, whether the box could produce money for a lifetime. The other party stated that there was a limit to it. Once the blood could no longer satisfy the child in the box, the deal would be over. Jack worriedly asked what would happen afterward. Jack was so scared that he dropped the spoon in his hand. Kate didn't try to hold him back. She simply wished the couple well. His wife was Jack's Achilles heel, thinking about how poor they had been all their lives and wanting to provide a better life for each other. Jack sat back down in his chair and finished eating all of the dark dish. At this moment, Kate thoughtfully looked at the ball above. He noticed that an empty ball was emitting a faint green light. What on earth was this thing? The box unexpectedly appeared on the table. The agent immediately rushed forward to grab it, but the moment he got hold of the box, the agent's head throbbed painfully, and he let out a terrible scream. Suddenly, someone called Jack. When Jack answered, he froze in place because Hunter was not only alive but he was also cursing Jack and the agent for daring to take his money. He vowed to take revenge on both of them. Jack realized that it was all the agent's doing. He wished he could kill him. Jack demanded to know where the money was hidden. The agent pleaded with him to first make what was in the box stop screaming. These words gave Jack an idea. He directly picked up the knife from the table and cruelly cut open the agent's carotid artery, letting the blood drip into the box. After finishing, the treasure chest actually produced a lot of money. Just as he was feeling happy about it, his wife suddenly burst in. She saw the agent lying on the ground, barely alive. She immediately took out her phone to call an ambulance. However, her husband knocked the phone away. His wife looked at him in disbelief. She questioned where the money on the table came from. Jack explained that it was given to him by the child in the box. Earlier, he had said that his hand was bleeding due to illness. In fact, it was all a lie. The truth was that he had been feeding the child in the box with his blood. His wife thought he was simply insane after hearing this. She believed he must have been possessed by an evil entity. Seeing that his wife didn't believe him, he urged her to quickly open the box. Listening to the deathly cries from the box, the wife instantly went into a frenzy. Jack urged her to try feeding the child. Unexpectedly, the things inside the box fell silent upon hearing this. However, the wife didn't believe any of it. She thought that there must be a harmful evil spirit in the box and prepared to smash the box to pieces. Jack hurried to stop her and insisted that, without the box, they would have no money in the future. Their lives would become poor again. Hearing this, the wife cried that they didn't need money anymore. They could find other ways to live from now on. Jack looked at the broken box and cried uncontrollably. At this moment, his wife called his name. Jack turned to see a large amount of blood pouring from his wife's abdomen. He couldn't believe he had actually harmed his wife. Jack was about to grab his phone to call an ambulance when he saw a photo sent to him by his wife. To his surprise, his wife's IVF had succeeded, but he had killed his wife and child for the sake of the box. On the other side, Kate looked at the balls above. Unexpectedly, there was an unforeseen gain. 3 balls turned green. In succession, this meant he had obtained 3 souls. Just as he thought everything was over, a 4th ball lit up. Meanwhile, Jack held his wife's hand tightly and closed his eyes in regret. Thus, this farce finally came to an end. At this moment, Kate looked up and discovered that all the balls had turned green. Without hesitation, Kate walked towards the door, but the door suddenly closed by itself. No matter how Kate hit it, it remained unmoved. Kate shouted angrily that all the lights were on. Why wouldn't they let him leave? Seeing this scene, Kate was very angry. He glared at the door that emitted a strange aura. A company was holding a party. They were celebrating employee Mike for bringing profits to the company. Mike was very proud as well. He excitedly gave his acceptance speech. However, Mike's mother, Sarah, looked stern in the audience. She didn't seem satisfied with her son's situation. While everyone was toasting and celebrating, Sarah got into an argument with the company owner. She asked why Mike, after 5 years of hard work for the company, only received a trophy in that second-hand bicycle. How could he even dare to present such trash? Mike felt very embarrassed seeing his mother act like this. Mike wanted to stop his mother from continuing her outburst, but she unexpectedly gave a passionate speech. She told others not to just work hard but to also fight for their rights, otherwise, all the benefits would go to the boss. Hearing this, the boss warned her not to defame others casually. However, Sarah didn't stop there. Instead, she used herself as an example and stated that she had over 100 employees at her nail salon, but she would never withhold the bonuses that belonged to her employees. The boss sarcastically asked Sarah why she didn't let Mike work at her nail salon. Sarah, hearing this, ran away in anger. With her mother causing such a scene, Mike felt embarrassed. After returning home, he immediately messaged his boss to apologize. At this moment, his girlfriend, Lily, was excitedly running around the villa. She asked Mike when he would introduce her to his mother. Mike thought he needed to find a suitable opportunity. However, Sarah unexpectedly walked out without warning. Mike understood that this day would come eventually. He introduced Lily to his mother. Lily said many good things. After all, Mike's family was considered wealthy. But Sarah stated that she knew Lily's character well. She said that Lily was an unreliable woman. These words directly angered Lily. She left in a fit of rage. Mike spent a lot of effort to calm her down. Afterward, he returned home. His mother stated that she just didn't want Mike to follow the same path as before because Lily was already bold enough to bully her. Their future marriage would definitely be unhappy, so it was fine to play around with Lily, but they absolutely shouldn't get married. Then Sarah reasoned with Mike, telling him to learn to bravely fight for his rights and happiness. At this moment, the boss sent Mike a message, telling him to come to the office tomorrow to collect his bonus.
Có thấy mừng á, chị mẹ làm tiếng thay con không? Chuẩn bị lãnh thưởng đây là vừa.
The next day, Mike excitedly arrived at the company. However, the bonus the boss mentioned turned out to be his salary for the month. He was fired because of Sarah's incident. On the way home, Mike received a call from Lily again. She immediately scolded Sarah, then she angrily hung up the phone. Mike took a photo of the restaurant ahead and messaged Lily to meet him there for a discussion. After entering the restaurant, Mike received a message from his mother. She hoped to talk to him about recent events. However, Mike didn't want to pay attention to his mother. At this moment, Kate approached and asked him if he didn't love his mother. Mike replied that he did love her.
Lâu lâu con muốn lấy băng keo bịt miệng bà lại.
Kate teased Mike and asked why Mike didn't cut off his mother's tongue. He then took out a sheep's head and instructed Mike to see the sheep's head as his mother, to cut off her tongue with hatred. Hearing that he could release his anger in this way, Mike curiously did as instructed. Afterward, he felt extremely relieved. However, Kate certainly wasn't so kind. He asked Mike if he wanted to live under his mother's oppression for a lifetime. Then he attacked the weak points in Mike's heart. After returning home, Mike packed his things and prepared to run away from home. Sarah came over to stop him. The two erupted into an argument. Mike even brought up his father, whom his mother was reluctant to mention. These words left Sarah gasping with anger. She kicked her son out. Then Sarah sat on the sofa, lost in thought. On the other side, Mike arrived at the restaurant and told Kate that his mother had kicked him out. Kate didn't ask any questions but instead introduced the roasted lamb tongue in front of her. He mysteriously said that with each bite, Mike could feel his mother's pain. If he could emerge from the pain, he could fulfill his wishes. Mike didn't want to listen to his mother's nagging for a lifetime. Without hesitation, he ate a piece of lamb tongue. When he opened his eyes again, Mike found Lily on a date with another man. He approached and questioned what was going on. To his surprise, she simply pushed him away. At this moment, Mike looked at himself in the mirror. He was shocked to discover he had transformed into his mother. It turned out that when Sarah saw Lily with someone else, she pleaded with her not to toy with her son. However, in Lily's eyes, Mike was just a backup option for her. She wanted to hurt Mike. That's why she called him to provoke the mother-son relationship. Mike was devastated upon learning the truth. He demanded to know what Kate had done.
Người mẹ nào mà không sẵn sàng chịu đau thay cho con.
Hearing this, Mike ate a second piece of lamb tongue. This time, he went to the company. His colleagues stopped him from going in, but he turned into Sarah and insisted on breaking into the boss's office to fight for the boss's dismissal of Mike, saying that Mike remained silent because he respected the boss. But a person like the boss only had a mouth that could sweet-talk. He ignored the contributions of employees and withheld bonuses. The boss was instantly rattled by her words. He grabbed Sarah's face, shouting incessantly, and revealed his petty nature. Upon discovering the truth, Mike asked Kate why his mother was unwilling to tell him these things.
Người mẹ nào mà không thể chịu nhục vì con mình.
Then Kate asked Mike if he wanted to continue. Now there was only one piece of lamb tongue left, and this piece was the most lethal and painful. It was about Mike's father. Mike didn't hesitate at all. He swallowed the lamb tongue whole. Young Sarah came home from work. She heard her husband yelling at the child. The reason was that the child had been crying and was annoying him. Sarah quickly took the child away and said the child was just too hungry. However, the drunken father didn't care about that. He even wanted to throw the child downstairs. Then Sarah seized the opportunity to lock her husband out. After confirming it was temporarily safe, she hurried to check on the child and discovered that he was very ill, so Sarah opened the door to go to the hospital. However, the drunken father insisted on opposing her. In order to take her son to the hospital, Sarah exerted her strength and slammed the door open. This caused her husband to fall down the stairs and die. Upon learning everything, Mike cried inconsolably. He never knew that his mother had done so much for him, so Mike immediately ran home. But when he got home, he found that the stairs were covered in blood. It turned out that Sarah had been resting at home. As Mike cut the lamb tongue, her own tongue fell as well. At this moment, Mike followed the blood trail to his mother's room. Tongueless, Sarah looked incredulously at the person in front of her, because in her eyes, the person in front of her was her bloodied husband. He was desperately trying to kill her, but it was actually Mike who wanted to take her to the hospital. However, Sarah thought her husband was coming to take her life. Ultimately, Mike died at the hands of the mother who loved him the most. On the other side, Kate saw the light above illuminate. He realized that Mike hadn't escaped the devil's scheme. However, he didn't want to continue killing for the devil, so Kate picked up a flamethrower to burn the strange wooden door, but after trying for a long time, it was completely useless. What secrets were hidden behind this door? David was welding a guardrail when suddenly, his son Alan took a photo of him. He declared that he was determined to win the gold medal in the photography competition. David felt that he was all dirty and told his son to leave quickly. But while David was busy, Alan took a selfie with him. Little did they know, this would be the last photo of the father and son together. At night, David was called to the hospital. When he saw Alan's body, David vowed to take revenge for his son. However, the doctor said that Alan had ended his own life. But David didn't believe it at all. After all, his son was supposed to compete at school today, and he was confident he would win the gold medal. How could he feel hopeless after the competition? Afterward, David returned home. He looked at the photos taken by his son to find the answer, and the photo of the Devil's Restaurant caught his attention. Thinking of his son, who was his only companion, losing his life, David lay on Alan's bed and cried. The next day, David went to the school to request the surveillance footage. The footage showed Alan trying to escape from something, so David believed someone must have forced Alan, but the teacher insisted it was just an accident. As he spoke, he brought out Alan's gold medal. Holding the trophy, David felt very conflicted. As he was leaving the school, he was suddenly stopped by a boy in a school uniform. The boy said that if David wanted to know why Alan died, he should find someone named R2. David wanted to ask for more details, but a group of pursuers came from behind, scaring the boy away. After returning home, David looked through his son's photos. Sure enough, he found R2 among them. David immediately set off to the location where the photo was taken. He discovered a group of people beating up the boy who provided the clues. David questioned the leader, R2, if he was the murderer. Upon hearing this, R2 panicked and ran away. At this moment, David wanted to confirm if R2 was the killer, but the beaten boy said it was complicated and ran away. Just then, David saw the sign for the Devil's Restaurant. He remembered his son had been here, so he entered to check things out. When he saw the exquisite wooden door on the wall, David, a craftsman himself, was in awe. Suddenly, Kate came over and asked if he wanted to open it, but David tried for a long time and got no response. Kate showed a look of disappointment at this. To ease the tension, he offered David a free drink. Soon, the two began talking about Alan. Kate asked if David wanted to take a life for a life in revenge, but David only wanted to seek the truth and obtain justice. He didn't want to harm anyone for this. Kate then resorted to words to incite David's anger. As David's anger reached its peak, he took a photo of David with his camera, then he used tweezers to poke at the hand in the photo. In the next moment, seeing blood oozing from the photo, his own hand exhibited the same symptom. David asked Kate what he had done. Kate said he was providing a way for revenge. With just a pair of tweezers, he could attack others. What if it were replaced with another deadly weapon? But David still refused to let the murderer sacrifice his life. Kate brought him some snake heart liquor and continued to stoke David's anger. However, David's rationality suppressed his impulse. He said no and left. The next day, David waited at the school gate for the students to get out. When he saw R2 come out, David immediately followed him. But R2's father suddenly appeared and pulled him aside. He scolded R2 not to cause trouble. David rushed over in a flash.
Con ông là đồ vu côn để giết con tôi đó. Ông nói sao á?
David thought R2's father would step up and take responsibility. However, the man said there was no evidence, and he couldn't slander others. He even threatened David that if he continued to bother him, he would send someone to deal with him. After all, he was also a responsible father. But his evasion angered David. Then David angrily found Kate and demanded to be taught how to use the camera quickly. Kate told him to try the dish he had made first, a snake that had swallowed its own tail. He said that only after eating this could he use the camera to kill everyone who wanted to kill him. After a long mental struggle, David finally ate the snake meat. Immediately after, he found R2 and asked him the truth about Alan's death. David casually took a half-body shot. Seeing him, R2 ran away in a panic. David had to fold the photo in his hand. R2's leg broke on the spot. He fearfully asked David what he had done. David ignored him and took a close-up shot. He threatened R2 to quickly confess to killing Alan. R2 insisted that he hadn't done it. Having witnessed David's methods, R2 still claimed he hadn't killed Alan. David took out a sharp object and told R2 that if he didn't tell the truth, he would really kill him. In order to save his life, R2 finally confessed everything. He said he was only trying to get back the photos, some photos of their love for each other. It turned out that Alan and R2 were lovers. Although R2's father had a lot of wealth, he was very harsh on his son. If he felt his son embarrassed him, he would beat him. Only Alan understood and empathized with R2. However, just a few days ago, Alan said they had been together for 6 months. It was time to make everything public. He wanted to reveal their intimate photos on the day he won the award. Upon hearing this, R2 exploded with rage. After all, if his father knew about this, he would be finished.
Mình yêu cậu, mình không có sợ.
Just then, other classmates came over. They attacked him, claiming Alan was gay. R2, afraid, didn't dare to admit it. He simply warned his classmates not to hit people, yet he still refused to bravely stand up, leaving Alan to bear all the abuse alone. Seeing R2's indifferent and retreating gaze, Alan couldn't accept it and chose to end his life. David was devastated upon learning the truth. He was already in tears. David handed the photo in his hand to R2 and left. At this moment, R2 recalled the sweet times with Alan. In the end, he also chose to end his life. David, returning, saw this scene and hurried to the restaurant. He pleaded with Kate to save R2. However, Kate said, "You killed him. Wait for his father to come and seek justice from you." David shouted in response that he had ended his own life.
Cách của con không đúng không?
David realized he had been played. He then intended to kill Kate. In his anger, David took a photo of Kate. Then he plunged the knife forcefully into Kate's head. But for some reason, the person in the photo turned out to be himself. Soon, the photo oozed a large amount of blood, and David's artery ruptured as well. The boy Jimmy relied on his mother for support. They were preparing to go to the market to sell goldfish for money. Although life was tough, they were very happy together. However, a car accident shattered everything. The accident took his mother's life. Years later, Jimmy grew up. With nothing to do, he snorted some flour to numb himself. Jimmy blamed all his life's misfortunes on his mother's death and the car accident. At this moment, the landlord came over to demand rent. Jimmy said he would pay when he got his salary. Then he went to the construction site. Seeing he was late, the foreman immediately yelled at him. Jimmy innocently said it was his birthday and asked if he could eat first before working. He was yelled at once again. Jimmy could only run upstairs to snort flour. After a few snorts, he quickly started hallucinating. The foreman saw that Jimmy was not only snorting flour during work hours, but had not been working properly since he arrived. Jimmy even damaged construction materials. He immediately fired Jimmy, saying he had been kind enough. He was only firing him without demanding compensation. Jimmy retorted that it wasn't his fault, blaming others for deliberately placing things near him to trap him. Of course, the foreman wouldn't listen to his nonsense. He spat and left, with nowhere to go. Jimmy lay by the roadside, hungry and tired. But he had no money for food. Jimmy could only continue to escape everything with flour. He stayed there until night fell. Suddenly, a woman talking on the phone walked by. Jimmy didn't pay her any attention. However, when the woman saw Jimmy, she told her friend on the phone that she had encountered a pervert. Jimmy grabbed the woman's bag and ran away. In his haste, he hid inside the Devil's Restaurant. Jimmy also wanted to escape through another door, but he couldn't open the wooden carved door at all, so he could only hide in the kitchen. Soon, the woman's friend chased after her. However, Kate said that no one had come in. Once Jimmy confirmed it was safe and came out, he found that there was nothing valuable in the stolen bag. Kate began to chat with Man. When she learned that it was Jimmy's birthday, she curiously asked why he would rob someone on such a day. This topic opened the floodgates for Jimmy. Under the influence of alcohol, Jimmy poured out all his misfortunes, but he felt that none of it was his fault. It was all because of the driver who killed his mother back then. Otherwise, his life would have gone smoothly. At this moment, Kate posed a soul-searching question. "Isn't the root of all your misfortunes the flour?" Jimmy replied that if his mother hadn't died, he would never have touched this addictive substance. Hearing this, Kate took out a bottle of candied currants and said this could help a person return to the past. Then she urged Jimmy to take a lick. Jimmy complied. To his surprise, he actually went back to before the robbery. In shock, he immediately followed the woman to rob her again. When he ran all the way back to the restaurant, everything before him returned to the scene of drinking with Kate. He marveled at Kate's abilities. At this moment, Kate asked him if he was willing to eat the currant to return to the past. However, eating one would take away 10 years of his life, and Jimmy only had 3 chances. Jimmy was very willing to go back to the past after hearing this. After all, life was really too hard for him now. It's better to die than to live. To go back and change everything, Jimmy immediately ate the first currant. As the current went down, Jimmy found himself back in his childhood. He looked at the candied currant in his hand and cried. Little did he know, his mother thought he wanted to eat it, so she distractedly tried to help him open the jar. Jimmy said it was dangerous, but she insisted on opening the jar. In the next moment, although he was back in the past, Jimmy still couldn't change his mother's fate of dying in a car accident. And his life afterward didn't change either. Furious, he ran to Kate to settle the score and question why he couldn't save his mother and why he had to relive the same tragic life.
Đêm chưa ra nổi nữa.
Jimmy was used to making excuses for his inaction and laziness. He only knew how to blame everything on his mother's death. Kate said at least this time he was a little different, that he had stolen a phone instead of a bag. Selling the phone might change his life for the better. However, Jimmy didn't want to hear it at all. He didn't want to continue living in a slum and didn't want to endure everyone's ridicule. Jimmy demanded to go back to the past again. He was determined to save his mother at all costs. Kate didn't want to be too harsh. She advised Jimmy to try changing himself in the present. The devil expressed dissatisfaction upon hearing this. It kept shaking the light bulb to warn Kate. Kate was helpless in response. She had to give the choice to Jimmy soon. Jimmy returned to the past once again. He warned his mother about the pothole in advance. However, when his mother tried to avoid the pothole, the car flipped over again, and his life repeated the same tragic pattern. However, when he arrived at the construction site, Jimmy suddenly stopped trying to suck flour because he remembered that he lost his job for damaging the materials. This time, he was extra careful. Jimmy finally got to eat the lunchbox at the construction site. Even the foreman noticed his change, so, after saying that he should quit the flour and live well, he paid him for the day's work. On the way home, Jimmy didn't use the money to buy flour. Instead, he paid the rent. He even bought a bottle of iced tea for his landlord. The landlord was very pleased with the changed Jimmy. She was very gratified. After getting home and lighting incense for his mother, Jimmy pondered and still went to the restaurant. He knew his future life might improve, but he still regretted not being able to save his beloved mother, so he wanted to use his last chance. Kate wanted to advise him to let it go. After all, time heals all wounds. But Jimmy said that if he knew he had a chance but didn't try, his remaining life would eventually be spent in regret. Kate didn't continue to speak after hearing this. He simply took out the current quietly. In the end, the light still lit up green. This meant that Jimmy ultimately failed. This reminded Kate of his deceased father. He glanced meaningfully at the wooden carved door. Was there a connection between the two? At this moment, Kate suddenly let out a piercing scream. When he lifted his head again, blood tears streamed down his eyes. This was the devil's punishment for his compassion. Kate shouted in fury that even if he helped Jimmy, he still ended up dead, didn't he? To his surprise, Kate was actually burned to medium rare. But did he really die just like that? 25 minutes later, the tormented Kate was subdued. He kept apologizing to the devil and stated that he would no longer have compassion in the future. Heartbroken, Kang arrived at the devil's restaurant. He expressed that he would rather die than deal with heartbreak. Kate served him a dish of lotus heart stewed with centella. It turned out that a few months ago, Kang got drunk. He couldn't help but vomit all over a homeless man. The man berated him and walked away. At this moment, Kang suddenly felt nauseous, then he vomited out a piece of pulsating flesh. Meanwhile, Helen, having drunk too much, was vomiting uncontrollably. She also threw up on the homeless man who had just changed seats. Kang hurried over to help. Helen was wary of strangers, but Kang was very considerate and took out some hangover soup to share with her. Seeing that Kang took a sip and it wasn't poisonous, Helen felt reassured and started drinking it. Then the two agreed to go to the restaurant to eat. Afterward, they stuck together every day, becoming a very happy couple. But how could a relationship always be smooth sailing? One evening, Kang was preparing to pick up his girlfriend after work. He saw his girlfriend, who was bartending, shaking hands with a man. This sparked jealousy in Kang. The seeds of suspicion were planted from then on. Fortunately, the two were still as sweet as before. In fact, Helen even moved in to live with Kang. One day, Helen was about to organize her wardrobe. To her surprise, she found a woman's lingerie inside. Thinking her boyfriend was unfaithful, Helen angrily ran out of the house. Kang had no idea what was happening. To figure out what was going on, he went to the bar early that evening to wait. To his shock, he saw his girlfriend kissing the man from last time. Kang left angrily. Little did he know, Helen had not cheated at all. Seeing the man daring to do this, she grabbed a knife and was ready to fight him, warning him that she would cut him next time. After dealing with this troubling matter, she wanted to hear her boyfriend explain about the lingerie. However, all her calls were hung up. Just like that, both thought they had been cheated on. Kang even tossed the couple's bracelet to the side of the road.
Làm như mình thùng rác tôi nói vậy đó.
When a Kang got home, he found Helen waiting for him. She felt it was better to clarify everything, but when a Kang saw the lingerie, he said he knew nothing. Then they erupted into a quarrel and hurled the most hurtful words at each other. When a Kang realized he needed to apologize, Helen noticed that a Kang's couple bracelet was missing, so she directly proposed breaking up and left. At this moment, a Kang unexpectedly vomited a piece of pulsating flesh again. As Helen passed by a homeless man, she also threw away the bracelet. Afterward, she went to the Devil's Restaurant to drink and asked Kate if there was a way to forget the person who hurt her. The next day, a Kang went to the hospital for an examination. He learned that if he didn't get a heart transplant, he probably wouldn't live much longer. This news shocked him, combined with the pain of heartbreak. A Kang went to the restaurant to drink away his sorrows. He asked if there was a way to forget the pain. Kate brought him lotus heart stewed with centella. He explained that this could help one forget the person who brought pain in just one sip. A Kang asked if he would die after eating it. Kate said he wouldn't die immediately, but later, if he died, he would have to give his soul to him. After hearing this, a Kang ate the dish. Soon, everything related to Helen disappeared. He became happy again, but after getting drunk, he vomited flesh again. A Kang also saw the drunken Helen. As if destined, the two kept encountering each other repeatedly. The homeless man was speechless. He didn't understand why they frequently passed by, vomiting all over him. Especially when he saw Helen and a Kang not recognizing each other, he thought they were playing a game, so he cursed them, telling them not to bother him anymore. He angrily took out the bracelet they had thrown at him and left. Then the two entered the Devil's Restaurant. Kate thought it was time to reap, so he had them place their hands on the wooden carved door. Lost memories flooded back instantly. The two had already turned into tearful messes. They hugged each other and apologized. It turned out that Helen had also eaten the lotus heart stewed with centella, and the price was that her heart would have problems, and now all misunderstandings were resolved. Two people who loved each other spent their last beautiful moments together. Kate discovered that the wooden carved door had undergone a mutation. The wheel of life above started to turn. The wheel of life includes the 6 paths of reincarnation: the heavenly path, human path, Asura path, animal path, hungry ghost path, and hell path. It is said that there are 5 sins that can cause a person's soul to be lost, trapped in the cycle of reincarnation. The 5 sins are greed, anger, ignorance, pride, and doubt, and Kate had actually committed the most serious sin, which was self-inflicted death and patricide, leading directly to hell. It turned out that Kate's mother died after giving birth to him. His father, Kevin, raised him alone. Kevin was a woodcarver. He spent 30 years on a wooden carved door. Then he sent the work he had spent his entire life working on for free to the Devil's Restaurant. But the owner there didn't appreciate it. Kevin fell ill and couldn't recover after returning home. To figure out what had happened, Kate sought out the restaurant owner. He intended to make him pay for the wooden door. However, the owner said that it was Kevin who owed him and that a single door wasn't enough to settle the debt. Hearing this, Kate expressed his willingness to pay off his father's debt. The owner didn't waste any more words. He took out a knife and told Kate to kill him. Seeing Kate's confused expression, the owner invited him to eat and chat. It turned out that Kevin's wife had severe anemia. Her condition worsened during pregnancy, and it was passed down to the child. Not only that, the child had other congenital defects. Kevin was unable to afford treatment for the child. So Kevin made a deal with the owner. He would gain exquisite woodcarving skills to earn money for a few years. The condition was to find a time to kill the owner and take over the restaurant. If he kept delaying, his soul would never be able to reincarnate. At this point, the owner said he actually wanted to leave here long ago. Kate asked why he didn't just leave through the door if he wanted to go out. The owner demonstrated it directly for him. When Kate saw an 8-meter-long wound heal, instantly, Kate's worldview was shattered. He believed the owner was a devil and then asked if the wooden door had no purpose at all. The owner pointed to a nearby broken door and said that opening that door would grant him freedom.
Chỉ những ai không có tội mới mở được.
But who in this world can truly be without sin? So Kevin made the wooden door just to please him, to block the door that he originally hated. Kate asked if there were any other options. The owner said that all the light bulbs above lit up. But the devil would never let him go. It would keep increasing the number of bulbs. Kate realized that her father was in trouble, but he was more concerned about how to stop his father from suffering in pain. The owner said they could make a deal. He knew that Kate's wife was about to give birth. As long as Kevin was killed when the child was born, Kevin's soul would reincarnate into the child. This way, his soul could be redeemed, and the child would also be born safely. Kate certainly didn't want to kill his own father. So he rushed to the hospital to see Kevin, but for some reason, his father had become even more painful and irritable. At this moment, his wife said she was going into labor, but the situation was not optimistic. The doctor told Kate that he could only save either the adult or the child. Hoping that he could make a choice quickly, Kate hurried to the Devil's Restaurant. He confirmed whether his father's soul would reincarnate into his son. The owner said that killing Kevin would provide the answer in the end. Kate consumed the moon shell served by the owner and returned to the hospital to kill his father. When Kevin finally took his last breath, Kate's child was born safely, because Kate had requested to stay with his son for a while and only then would he repay the debt he owed. The owner agreed to this more than a decade later. Kate's son, Ashao, grew up to be an adult, but recently, he often heard his grandfather shouting. He ran to wash his face, hoping to wake himself up a bit. Hearing his grandfather shout that his father killed him and trapped his soul within his own body, Ashao collapsed and sought help from his parents. He accused his father of killing his grandfather and trapping his soul. Kate then realized that his father had not reincarnated at all, so he stormed to the restaurant to settle the score. The owner felt even more wronged upon hearing this. He had thought that in a few years, Kate would replace him, but he hadn't anticipated that this wait would last 15 years, just like Kevin back then. He had been avoiding him ever since having a child, and he had not harmed Ashao at all. He was on the brink of madness, suffering from Kevin's karmic retribution. Then the two erupted into a heated argument. Kate stabbed the owner dozens of times, but strangely, after the owner said that his karmic retribution had come, his body disappeared in the blink of an eye. Kate was scared and wanted to escape from the restaurant. He realized he was trapped here forever. Sarah checked her son's phone and arrived at the restaurant. The moment she stepped into the restaurant, all the light bulbs suddenly lit up. Kate asked her what she wanted to do. Sarah took out her phone and gestured, indicating that she wanted to resurrect Mike, but Kate couldn't do that at all. However, he could allow Sarah to speak again. After explaining his deal with Mike, Kate made her eat the bitter melon leaves and forgave her for everything she had done. This way, Sarah's soul could be reborn. She might even have the chance to see Mike through the nearby door. Clearly, this was also a test of humanity. Sarah listened and ate the bitter melon leaves, and the nearby door began to turn. Kate thought he was finally free. However, Sarah's hatred only grew stronger. She wanted to take revenge for her son and others who had made deals. At this moment, the light bulbs above began to shake violently. Then, without warning, they shattered. Kate began to suffer the pain of these people's deaths. In the end, he fell to the ground, covered in wounds. At this moment, Sarah saw the body disappear with her own eyes, and a light bulb in the restaurant lit up, but she, not believing in evil, walked out the door, only to find herself trapped here. The film ends here. This drama unfolds different stories based on greed, hatred, ignorance, arrogance, and doubt. It opens a window for the audience to glimpse the darker sides of human nature. It not only shows us the dark side of humanity but also warns us to control our desires. We must not let desires consume our reason and goodwill. Although each story unfolds in a serialized format, the restaurant and the owner tightly connect them. The overall narrative doesn't feel abrupt. The magical and thrilling settings in the drama are a major highlight. Each dish has its own unique meaning. They become a link between desire and cost. For example, the snake that swallows its own tail provides an in-depth analysis from the perspective of human nature. It symbolizes the contradictions and self-conflicts of human nature. David in the drama was originally a righteous avenger. Deep down, he didn't want to harm others. However, under the stimulation of specific circumstances and events, the evil within him was provoked. Although he didn't personally kill anyone, he indirectly caused a life to be lost. Afterward, David fell into regret and self-blame. His identity shifted from an avenger to a perpetrator. This cycle continues endlessly, like the snake that swallows its own tail, never ending. This kind of plot setting deeply reveals the struggle and decline of human nature between good and evil. The moon shell symbolizes a turning point in fate. The meat of the shellfish is hidden within the shell, representing the secret desires hidden deep within a person. Thus, Kate appears to have no desires at first, but in the end, he becomes a tool of the devil. The above are all personal opinions. I take no responsibility for any inaccuracies. If you like my channel, please subscribe to my channel. Your support is the greatest encouragement for me.